Get out the insurance cards, get out the copays. The office is open, my friends. Brought to you by drroto.com.
Good afternoon, my friends. We are live here at drroto.com with our brand new show, kind of impromptu, thanks to Trevor, of Rise and Grind. And what we are going to do is we're going to wake up early on a Tuesday morning after the week's games have gone through. We're going to go through every game. We're going to look for risers, fallers, waiver wires, straight up drops, which I think there are a couple this week. Joining me, of course, trust in Trevor. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great.
Absolutely love it. And our man, Lou Landers, live from Mexico. How are you, buddy?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Happy to be here. Excited to chew on all this stuff and recap the week for everybody.
Of course. And I am Johnny Danger. You can find all of our content, all of our stuff over at drroto.com, where if you drop in promo code WIN, you can get 10% off. Speaking of winning, I like to think we're winning people money. Trevor, did you have a good week?
I had a pretty good week in DFS. The afternoon slate was really good. I probably win about 200 grand if those touchdown passes go to Jacoby Myers instead of Tucker.
Tucker won some people some money. I saw him in some big lineups. So
yeah, I never played him.
Yeah. Lou, I know that you're not much of a DFS guy down there because of, access to the site, but I know you do well with bets. How are your bets this week?
This week, I unfortunately didn't win any parlays. For those of you who are in our Discord, I famously go by Lou 5 out of 6 Landers. I had 2 5 out of 6s this week. I hit some single bets, but I am still up over 500 for the season so far in props and parlays. So I would call that a win.
I love it. I went 3-1. I do believe that my bet on the Patriots, despite Lou's misgivings before the game, was a solid bet when you watch that game. I mean, shoot, dude, 2 turnovers on the 1-yard line. New England's offense outplayed the other team in that game. 4 turnovers, though, is hard to win a game with. Trevor, what do you think of that game?
Yeah, it was an ugly game to watch. I watched it twice, actually. The first half I watched twice. The second half I only needed to watch that once, but I just wanted to see a little bit more of the first half. It was I was wondering why Jaylen Warren wasn't getting more involved until the fourth quarter. He got involved again. He was involved early, then late. With Rodgers there, they just like to chuck the ball a little bit more than I like when I'm playing a guy like Warren. But Warren still had 23 touches.
All right, well, let's just get right into it. We don't want to keep everybody too long, so let's jump right into that Thursday night game. We had Miami versus Buffalo. Buffalo won that 31-21. Miami now drops to 0-3 with their next game at home against the Jets. Do they change their game plan? Do they have a game plan to change?
No, I think they just keep playing the way they're playing. I mean, there's nothing really else they can do. It's just, Achan, Waddle, and Hill. And that's about all you can do. There's nothing more. They can't really reinvent the wheel. I mean, they just got to keep playing the same way they play. They played Buffalo tough for the most part. Mm-hmm. They could have won that game if it wasn't for a bonehead throw.
Absolutely.
The bonehead
roughing
the punter. That was a killer. They got a huge stop in that game against the Bills with a chance to come down and tie or take the lead. And they had a roughing the punter penalty, really cost them. But you know what? Trev's right. They played really well. They played a lot better than the score would indicate. And if they play that well this next week, I think it's a Monday nighter. I think there's like a doubleheader, Monday nighter again. They could beat the Jets, although the Jets will probably get to them. Also played a lot better than people would have expected.
I agree. So there's a couple players on my watch list here that have popped up here or there. I don't know if it's time for them yet, but keeping an eye on Malik Washington, Ollie Gordon as a backup to Achan. Any love for these guys in deep leagues, having them on your bench? I mean, obviously Hill can get injured anytime. Achan plays hard and gets injured all the time. I think both of these guys in deep leagues have to be on your bench, or at least, quick trigger finger. What do you think?
They have to be, Danger. They have to be.
Absolutely.
Well, considering I have Connor and Najee Harris in the same team, I have to have Ollie Gordon. I mean, it's just the way it's going to plan out. There's not a whole lot of pickings for running backs on the waiver wire. So, I mean, I know Jalen Wright they're talking about him coming up, but I like the Ollie Gordon as far as having it on your bench, especially with the running back injuries you got. In the one league, I'll have no chance of getting Benson.
Yeah. And you've got Tyreek Hill is not in a contract year. He's got another year yet to go. Next year, I think he is the highest guaranteed contract to ever have a single season for a wide receiver. So I don't know what to think of Hill. He likes to quit sometimes. If he quits on this team, they're in danger.
He's gonna probably get traded. I really think he's going to get traded, and that's going to make Washington very interesting. With Ollie Gordon, he's been getting – well, he finally got some touches. They don't really have any power players in general on the offensive side of the ball. They're all skill and speed, so it's nice to see them have a guy like Ollie Gordon who is a different type of player who can run between the tackles, and I think that's something they've lacked for many years. So I do think even with A-Chain there, Gordon could get red zone touches at the very least. But of course, A-Chain has really not been all that healthy throughout his career. There will be times where at some point he'll miss some time, and Gordon is going to be startable in those moments, of course.
I can agree.
And maybe now Dallas, now that Lamb's on the lamb for a few weeks, maybe they'll trade for Hill.
No. Never know. All right, let's move on to Buffalo. The other side of that game, Buffalo is now 3-0. They get to stay home and play the Saints this week. Of course, this is a really nice fantasy team because it is really just Josh Allen, James Cook for the most part. And I think Dalton Kincaid has really almost made himself the number one wide receiver there. And I think the game flow dictates whether it's going to be Shakir or Coleman to go with them. I don't really have a watch list for this team. It's really just those five guys. Trevor?
Yeah, I agree with that. Kind of mad. I'm happy he's doing good this year. I had him in Dynasty 2 years ago, and I got rid of him last year. I kind of wish I still had him, but
yeah, you're talking about Kincaid?
Yeah, Kincaid. I meant
yeah, it's looking good. Luke?
So you're right. There's not anything that looks long term, but I would take a look at Ray Davis this week potentially because you got to think at some point the Bills could be running away with this game. And sure, you don't see players benched the same way in the NFL as you maybe do in other sports with big leads. But at some point, you got to say, we don't need to run James Cook into the ground for the final quarter and a half here when we're up by 3 or 4 touchdowns. So I could see Ray Davis having himself a bit of a decent day.
I mean, obviously, Ray Davis is an excellent handcuff. We've seen him do it in the past when Cook was injured. Josh Allen, is he making a case again for quarterbacks to go in the first round of fantasy redrafts?
Certainly in Superflex or 2 quarterback without question.
Definitely the second round. You know, if you look at some of these first and second round picks, there's a lot of them that haven't produced well this year. I wish I could go back in a lot of my drafts and you know, I waited on quarterback probably too long, and I wish I would have had Allen instead and drafted some other players later. So
instead of how many shares of Brian Thomas Jr., Trevor?
Way too many. Him and Chase Brown. I mean, I
have too much of those guys too, Trevor. Do you have any T. Higgins as well? I have Thomas and Higgins, and those teams are bad.
I wasn't high on Higgins. I did inherit a dynasty team that does have him, and I wasn't that happy about it.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next game, guys. I've got the Indianapolis Colts who won 41-20 against the Tennessee Titans. We'll look at Indianapolis first. They are 3-0 with their next game at the Rams. All of a sudden, Daniel Jones, I saw this meme and I'm going to steal it anyways, right? Daniel Jones gets out of New York and becomes Josh Allen. It's pretty entertaining. I mean, it's the Daniel Jones and Jonathan Taylor show right now. Pittman had his showing there. Tyler Warren has become very consistent through 3 games. I don't know how I feel about Alec Pierce or Josh Downs, but certainly people to keep on the radar if this offense is rolling. Lou, what do you think?
I like Pierce. That's what I was going to come in and say. I do like Pierce, maybe not on a week-to-week basis, but I do like him. I like that he can go up and get a ball. I like his big playability. And if you're talking about Daniel Jones looking like Josh Allen, and I can't disagree at this point, Jones is going to have plays where he buys time, scrambles out, and launches a deep ball. And the guy who's probably going to be the recipient of those is Alec Pierce.
Yeah, Trevor.
Well, and we haven't really seen the full capability of Daniel Jones either for fantasy because 2 of the 3 games they were playing way ahead in the second half. So we need to see what he's going to look like when they're coming from behind. And now maybe this is the week against the Rams, and they spread the ball out. You got Pittman, Pierce, Mitchell, Downs, Warren, and of course you got John Taylor.
Absolutely. On the other side of the ball, you got Tennessee 0-3. Not a real surprise to many of us. Heading over to play at the Texans. Cam Ward, certainly some potential, played really well in college, but is incredibly inaccurate so far. I mean, you're looking at Calvin Ridley, who's got 21 targets and only 8 catches, and it doesn't look much better for the rest of that team. I'm worried about Cam. I like Tony Pollard on that team, and maybe Chig for some quick dump offs, but they do have some talent on that team. Io Manor has looked pretty good in his season. Tyler Lockett is not as involved as he's been in his past career, but he's certainly catching what has been thrown to him. And I think this team needs Tajay Spears back.
Oh, definitely. They need Spears back. He just gives them a little more options, especially on third down.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really have anything to add. You guys kind of summed it up perfectly. All I'll say is Cam Ward is not in the best of situations.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's some talent there, but the offensive line is not great. Mm-hmm. And his receivers aren't really getting much separation, which could contribute to why he seems to be inaccurate. I mean, I'd rather him throw the ball too low or too high out of bounds than throw an interception.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we have a very active Discord over at drroto.com. And some of the questions today have revolved around Alec Iomanor because he has caught some nice balls. He's looked okay. Where are you at with Alec? Are you dropping a guy like Troy Franklin, Lou, for Alec Iomanor?
I'm not going to drop Franklin at this point. You know what he's kind of like? He's like the new Westbrook Akine when he was with the Titans. Mm-hmm. He doesn't do that much, but he'll catch touchdowns.
Right.
That's exactly what Westbrook Akine used to do. So, no, I'm not going to drop Franklin yet. I think that the Chargers are a really good defense, and it's tough to kind of judge on what the Broncos did against them. Franklin and Knicks have that connection from back in college. Is Franklin going to be as good as he was the first 2 weeks? I wouldn't count on that, but no, I'm not going to drop him. I think that offense is only going to get better, and I don't really have much faith in the Titans.
We'll get to Denver later, I suppose. So we'll talk more about Franklin when we get to Denver because there's some things there I'd like to touch on. But
all right, well, we'll get to the next game, which I teased, which ruined my 4-play parlay this week, which was such a fire pick. It really was. We got Pittsburgh Steelers taking out the New England Patriots 21-14. Pittsburgh is now 2-1 with their next game at home against the Vikings. This is another team that is fairly well defined who they play, right? You got Aaron Rodgers, Jalen Warren, you got DK Metcalf, and kind of a split look between Jonnu Smith and Pratt Freiermuth. Sadly, they're kind of splitting targets, so I don't think either one is super playable for me. Trevor, what do you think about this Pittsburgh team?
I don't really have a whole lot to say about Pittsburgh. I do think that they throw the ball a little too much sometimes, but there's really not a whole lot
with Rodgers. Every time you give him a pass run option, he's passing. So.
Yeah, he's definitely going to pass. And that game will be played in. Are they playing in Ireland at 8:30 in the morning or 9:30 Eastern time? So I think it's in Ireland. I couldn't remember if it was in Ireland or England. I should know. It's my team playing them. It's the Vikings. Wherever the Vikings are playing their next 2 weeks, they're playing at 8:30 in the morning because they're going overseas for both games. So Pittsburgh is DK, Metcalf, and Warren. And he'll spread around to the tight end. Austin's the deep threat. So
I do have my watch list, Lou, of Calvin Austin on this team. I liked him a lot more when he was the returner, and you got that chance at the return touchdown. He's not been doing that this year, but he seems to be actively involved as wide receiver 2. And then Kenneth Gainwell has stolen some goal line touches. So any love for either of those guys on your roster? Are they fine on the waiver wire in their desperation plays only?
I'll go with the latter there. Desperation plays only. I have Calvin Austin in a couple dynasty leagues because the rosters are just larger, and he's a guy. But Gainwell, not really. Something would have to happen to Warren.
Yeah, Gainwell doesn't get enough volume, but he did ruin a few lineups for me in DFS when they didn't let Warren score there.
All right. On the other side, we've got New England. They are now 1-2. Their next game is at home against the Carolina Panthers. Obviously, Drake May is a standalone value in most DFS weeks. He gets it done with his feet. Trevor Henderson, will he get some extra looks because his backfield partners, Gibson and Stevenson, dropped 3 fumbles, and they can almost be just dropped off rosters if you were holding on to them.
Well, I'm not getting rid of Stevenson because they still seem to love to go to him. Gibson I didn't have, but if I did, I would drop him. I've been going back and forth with Doc in texts for weeks about not getting Trevion Henderson the ball. I'm shocked at how little they've wanted to get him the ball. I would buy low if you could right now. I think you could sell people on the fact that, it's still Stevenson's backfield, and you could get him low because he is going to start to get more involved, not only because of the fumbles, but because he was one of their top picks, and they are going to use him, and he can catch the football. He can run with the football. They need some more explosive plays, in my opinion, and I think he can be someone who can do that.
Yeah, I agree. On the passing side, Trevor, it's basically Hunter Henry and nobody else. Stephon Diggs doesn't look like he even wants to play football.
Diggs doesn't look. I don't think he's fully recovered from whatever and age. He looks slow to me. What really hurts back to the running game a little bit is they don't have that player that can take the top off defenses. So the defenses, there's no respect for a deep play, so they can crowd that line of scrimmage a little bit more. That really hurts. Plus, they have Garrett Bradbury as center at New England, and he's not very good. But Stevenson should get the ball a little bit more. But as far as the receivers, yeah, it's Hunter Henry, and there's Butte, Diggs. They just don't excite me. I mean, Butte is a player you can have for your bye weeks. He's just not a guy I'm looking to start on a weekly basis.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, we're moving over to the Jets 27 at Tampa Bay 29. In all aspects, the Jets had this game won several times and just couldn't close out the end of the game. The Jets are now 0-3, and they're going to have to go to the Dolphins next. A couple of loser teams. I don't know how much I'm looking forward to that game. But I'm shocked how well they played with Tyrod Taylor. And really on that team, it's the quarterback, it's Breece Hall, it's Garrett Wilson. I have almost no interest in anybody else there. But I do have a couple watch list players. Obviously, Braylon Allen has gotten it done when Breece Hall has gotten hurt. And then I've got some interest in their tight end, Mason Taylor. Trevor, what do you think of these guys?
Well, Taylor looks good on the film. He's just not getting a lot of catches, but he does look good when you watch the replays. I hope Fields comes back, because if Fields comes back, I'm going to play for DFS, I'm going to play the full slate of games through Monday night, because I think Fields will run all over the Dolphins.
See, and I hope he doesn't come back, because I have a ton of Garrett Wilson shares. And to me, his arrow is up with Tyrod Taylor, not because Taylor is necessarily a good quarterback, but he has been around forever. He's been on a lot of teams. He's played a lot of meaningful snaps. And I think he just has a better command of an offense than that of Justin Fields. So if you're a Garrett Wilson owner, you want Tyrod sticking around. Otherwise, if you're a Justin Fields owner, you want Fields back on the field, because he can obviously impact fantasy. That game danger, the score looks good, and the Jets could have won, but the Bucs really had that game in complete control for most of it. Kind of let the Jets crawl back in with garbage time. Then that blocked field goal happened for the touchdown. But, for the Jets, you kind of hit it on the head. Breece, Garrett Wilson, and that's about it.
Nothing else. On the other side, Tampa Bay is now 3-0. They do get to stay home, but they're going to host the Eagles, and they've got some issues, guys. Baker Mayfield has looked good. Bucky Irving has looked good, but they now add Mike Evans to the will not play list with Chris Godwin. Emeka Ibuka has been an absolute stud of a rookie, but he is dinged up a little bit as well. So this is going to lead us to some interesting questions. Does Bucky get split out a little bit more? Does Rachaad White carry the ball a little bit more? And then who's coming out of Sterling Shepard, Cameron Johnson, Ryan Miller? Obviously, Sterling is the veteran, and he's going to step up there next to Ibuka. But any interest at all, Lou, in Cameron Johnson or Ryan Miller as a flyer?
None whatsoever. For one, I don't like them or trust them. Two, I think Shepard could be a wide receiver too in that offense, but he might not have to be, because Chris Godwin could be back this week. And no, he's not Mike Evans, but he would definitely add a boost. You wouldn't feel like you're losing much overall in that offense. If you are a Baker owner, for instance, if you are an Ibuka owner, you wouldn't have to rely on him being that number one, because Godwin could step into that role. I do think they could move Bucky out a little bit, as you mentioned, or Rachaad White. Rachaad White's a really, really good receiving running back. He's a guy that could get more touches if the wide receivers are banged up.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like Cade Otton is just uninvolved completely. And Trevor, I have to be honest, I had to look up who Cameron Johnson and Ryan Miller were. So that doesn't bode well for adding them to any of my dynasty leagues.
Yeah, I wouldn't add them, but if you're desperate for a back, if you're one of those guys that Connor went down in Harris. I was mentioning before the show, I have Connor and Harris on one team, and I wasn't starting Harris, but he was there just for as a handcuff. White, I think White has a good chance of splitting out more this week. I mean, I expect him to have a bigger role this week now that Evans is out. I would think they'd split him out and leave Bucky back there.
Yeah, I can get behind
also,
that.
Danger, you mentioned Auden. Auden was very quiet last season until all of a sudden Evans and Godwin were out, and then he went on a tear for like 3 or 4 weeks. He was like the best tight end in fantasy football. So not to say it's going to happen, but should Godwin also be out this week, Auden could be the wide receiver one there as a tight end. It might not last, but while those guys are out, he could step in again.
Well, they did lose that offensive coordinator that made those changes too, though.
Yeah, but if the Otton is more involved in the offense, you only needed 4 or 5 catches, and if he wasn't to sneak in the end zone, I mean, if you're looking for a desperate tight end play, but most people with a 12-team league, standard 12-team league, most people will have a better option. I would say Otton would be more of a DFS flyer.
Fair enough. All right, let's move on. We've got the Las Vegas Raiders and the Washington Commanders. This game finished 24-41. In kind of a weird kind of way, if you ask me. It wasn't exactly how I saw the game going. The Raiders are now 1-2. They're going to be home against the Bears next. Geno Smith is fine. He's not really helping anybody, but he's there. Ashton Gentry, a little disappointing based on where he was drafted. A little might be an understatement. Jacoby Myers and Trey Tucker are just all over that field wide open the whole time, all the time. And then, of course, we got Brock Bowers, who also has not lived up to his draft capital yet. Trevor, I know you're deeply involved in Ashton Gentry as well. What's happening?
Well, what I'm saying is, this week he's playing against the Bears, and if you're owning Gentry, you gotta hope he has a big week this week, and if he does, you get rid of him, because I was looking at the Raiders' upcoming schedule. It is a gauntlet. I mean, they play a lot of tough run teams. They'll be playing from behind a lot. I think you could go for a guy like Quishon Judkins, get a 2-for-1 deal with him, because I don't think Judkins can have a big week against Detroit, but Judkins has a much easier schedule than Gentry, and I think you can get a 2-for-1. So if I had Gentry and he has a big week this week, I'm looking for the Judkins owner and trying to pawn him off.
Luke?
Yeah, I'm worried about Gentry. Maybe not this week. The Bears can be run on. There's no question about that. But Trevor hit that right on the head. In Dynasty, I'm not worried about Gentry. I still want as many shares as possible, and I would even try to buy low. But right now, this season, he has no running room. He has no running lanes. I believe I saw a stat where there was initial contact by a defender on him behind the line of scrimmage. 50% of his carries. There's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to move. Now, Saquon Barkley was still very good with the Giants, but he wasn't Saquon Barkley that we saw last year. You saw the difference between going from a bad offensive line to one of the best offensive lines. So I don't blame Gentry, but if you have him, it has to be concerning right now. And they're not even involved enough in the passing game.
I was going to say,
that's a problem too.
Yeah, I was just about to say the thing that scares me the most is 0 targets last week out of the backfield. You had Zamir White sightings, which is sad. Sad. Any love for Dante Thornton?
White's actually been getting a lot of third down work.
He has been. So speaking of him, is Zamir White somebody in a deep bench you're looking at? Is Dante Thornton somebody you're looking at a deep bench, Trevor?
No.
Nope.
No, I mean, if I have Genty and there's literally nothing out there at all on the waiver wire and you're really in that deep of a league, would I pick up White in case something happened to Genty? It's possible, but that's the only that's the only way I would even remotely consider it.
Fair enough. All right, let's go to the Washington side. They're now 2-1, and they get the Falcons next. Of course, we had Marcus Mariota throw a pretty decent game for a backup, won some people some DFS money. We've still got kind of an underperforming Bill Krosky-Merritt. Terry McLaurin has yet to be seen on the season. Deebo Samuels is continuing to look like he did for the Niners last year, which is uninvolved in important situations. And Zach Ertz still kind of doing his thing, just plodding along, catching his 4 balls a game. We did see a Luke McCaffrey sighting, Trevor, this week.
Yeah, that was kind of the Raiders were playing the run there, and they were just trying to, they were up by 10, and they just said, well, we'll catch you off guard and throw a touchdown pass. So I'm not interested in Luke McCaffrey at all.
Lou?
Not with McCaffrey, no, but I might be looking more into Jeremy McNichols because I don't know if anyone is necessarily going to establish themselves as the guy in that backfield. Maybe Bill will. It's still so weird for me to call him Bill. I really don't get it. Maybe someone can explain that to me. But maybe McNichols is of interest. I do think McLaurin will get things rolling. I think he did have a big play that got taken down on the 1 yard line in that last game. So maybe that'll get him jump started a little bit. You're right with Deebo. He hasn't been amazing, but it's actually been better than expected for me so far. I had zero interest in him coming into the year based on injuries and new offense and all that, but he's been better than expected. I think he'll be okay moving forward.
I like it. Trevor, do you like this Washington defense? I really only look at defenses through the lens of DFS for the most part. I've had defensive more or less eliminated from most of my season-long leagues. What are your thoughts on this defense?
If they're playing a team that has a bad offensive line, I really like them. If they're playing against a good offensive line, they're going to get cooked because their secondary got exposed against Green Bay. I mean, there's guys running wide open for the Raiders. They just got to Geno a few times, and when they didn't get to Geno, he was able to throw the ball at will on them. So, it's so matchup dependent for Washington. They're not a team that I would play every week.
Fair enough. All right, let's keep moving along. We've got the Rams versus Philadelphia. That ended up 26-33 in a big surprise. I think Philadelphia put up something like 19 points in the last 5 minutes of the game. Doc and I were texting back and forth. I was trying to figure out whether the Niners or the Eagles were the worst 3-0 team. And I can't figure it out because they looked real bad till the end of that game. But both of these teams are really solid for season-long fantasy football because they're very tight. The Rams have really just become Stafford to Puka and Adams and Kyler Williams. There's nothing else going on there. I think you keep an eye on Blake Corum because Kyler
I think if you get Corum now, you're not getting him. That might have been the case last week, but I think if he's out there, you have to get him. He is eating into those touches. I just want to say a hot take before you go over to Trevor. Eagles are CeeDee Lamb being able to catch a football, Travis Kelce being able to catch a football, and 2 blocked field goals away from being 0-3.
Yeah, they have not looked good. They really have not. They're lucky to scrape out this 3-0. Maybe they figure it out, right? But I just want to say, Trevor, everybody laughed at me Wednesday. They laughed at me Friday. They laughed at me Saturday. They laughed at me Sunday morning. Kyler Williams had over 100 yards and had a touchdown called back from penalty from having 2 touchdowns and over 100 yards. I think it was 7 catches. I mean, Kyler Williams looked good last week. Was that a one-off anomaly?
No, Kyron's been the guy this is his 3rd year now. I mean, there's no anomaly with Kyron Williams. I always like him. I didn't really necessarily like him against Philadelphia that much, but he played pretty well. The thing about this game is the Rams had a 3-score lead early in the second half, and they kind of played back. They were blitzing and they were getting to Hurts, and then it was like they changed their defense up for a little bit, and they gave the Eagles some confidence. And then once it got close at the end there, they made some mistakes on offense, and the Eagles capitalized.
Yeah, I mean, having 2 field goals blocked in the fourth quarter doesn't help. But Trevor, it's interesting you bring up the defense, and you're right. I didn't really think about it. But my takeaway is also it seems like they took their foot off the gas offensively, too. It's like they're kind of just like, oh, we have this big lead. Build on that big lead. That the offense just completely disappeared in the second half. If they put up another one touchdown in that second half, they don't have to worry about kicking a field goal at the end of the game. So there's some questions about kind of what happened there from a very well-coached team, too. It was a little surprising.
But they got a little conservative, but they also got a lot of penalties on offense in that second half that forced them in a longer distance, too, and that really hurt them. It seemed like the flags were coming out. I'm not saying they were trying to push Philly along, but it was kind of like, well, let's throw a flag on the Rams here.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, and I think Stafford has been this way for the last few years. Dude runs out of gas at the end of games. He's been beat up too long. He's too old. He's got too many back problems. He always just seems slower and slower as the game goes along. But that could be anecdotal. I don't get to watch a lot of Rams over here on the East Coast. But
to be fair, he did lead them down for a game-winning field goal.
Yeah, that is true.
I'll give him that credit.
Fair enough. Well, I don't think there's much to talk about on the Philly side. We know who the studs are. There's nobody really on a watch list on that team. All right, let's move on to my disappointment of the week, and also my thank God that I forgot to get in the 2 survivor pools I normally get in, because Atlanta Falcons would have lost me out of both of them easily. Atlanta 0, Carolina 30. I mean, that's just gross. Let's see, what do we got? We got the 1 and 2 Falcons with Commanders next, it looks like. Is Kirk Cousins going to come in this week, or are they going right back to Penix?
Coach said no. Coach said they asked him if Cousins was going to come in, and he said no. So, which really stinks about this 30-0 loss is that this Atlanta team came into my team's building U.S. Bank Stadium the week before and just knocked us around. So then you look this week and it's like 30-0 Panthers. It's like, what is my team doing? I know my team was banged up, but there's just a loss of passing game for Atlanta. Penix didn't look very good at all on Sunday. The way people were talking, I wasn't watching the game. We had the Packers and the Vikings on here, so I didn't watch the Atlanta game back until last night. And everybody was talking about, well, Bijan killed us in fantasy, but he still had like 16 fantasy points without scoring because he was able to catch. So he wasn't detrimental. He didn't put up a lot less than I thought he put up. So
yeah, well, in DFS especially, man, you need 24 points out of him. Every single week. So 16 is a disappointment.
He needs to score.
Mm-hmm. I know they got Nathan Carter involved because the game was out of hand. Any thoughts on this kid at all? I mean, obviously he's number 3 and he's not getting in the game unless they're way ahead or way below or there's an injury. But I didn't think he looked bad. They handed it off to him 9 consecutive times to end the game.
Yeah, there's no interest there.
Yeah. And then, again, this is another guy like Cal Austin, Lou. Ray McLeod loved him when he was returning kicks and could get that return touchdown. He's not doing that for them this year. And really, it's kind of like sometimes he's involved, but it's really just Bijan and Drake. And then may I remind you that Kyle Pitts is now tight end 11 on the year?
Yeah, and Mooney was injured. He came back. He wasn't bad, but there's no reason to throw the ball to Ray McLeod at this point unless it's on a quick screen every once in a while. It's kind of useless.
Yeah, and DFS-wise, on the other side of the ball, Trevor, Bryce Young, Chuba Hubbard, Ted McMillan, there's no one else really involved in any volume in that. So is this a DFS team now that you can trust because it's really just those 3 guys at the time being?
I don't know if you can trust them, but you when you play a lot of lineups like I do, I'm going to play them. But if I'm playing just a few lineups, I'm not. But their matchup this week, who are they playing again?
They got the Patriots.
New England Patriots? Yeah, I have some. Well, I've seen Bryce Young's prices at 4,700, so we'll talk about that tomorrow night with Doc. But I like to see McMillan score some touchdowns. They throw it up to him. He almost made a nice one-handed grab. I mean, they're throwing it to him, but they're really not catchable balls where they're throwing it to him. So. It's those 3 and that's it.
Fair enough.
I do like Jatavian Sanders a little bit, but I think they have to be in a closer game or playing, I know, or playing from behind for him to get involved if he's going to get involved.
Yeah, so I've seen some questions come up on this team. Obviously, we have a big following in our Discord of tight end premium leagues. So every time a tight end gets hurt, they want to talk about the next guy. Tommy Tremble's probably their next guy up, but he's really a blocker. He's not super involved. But we did see Rico Dowdle get pretty involved in this game. Hunter Renfrow, with Thielen out, has seen some more involvement. I'm not really in on either of these guys. Any interest in them on your waiver or watch list?
I like Renfrow just for the fact he scored some touchdowns this year, and there's really, like we said, there's nobody else to go to. They used Hubbard a lot in passing last weekend too, and they used Dowdle as the featured back on a few drives, and they had two backs out on the field, and they had Hubbard out there, so he caught some passes. So, but Renfro's a guy I like, and Dowdle, you should, if he's on waivers, you should have him on your roster, because if something does happen to Hubbard, I mean, he's the guy. So Dowdle should not be on waiver wire right now.
Fair enough. All right, let's keep on rolling. We got the Cincinnati Bengals only managing 10 against Minnesota's insane defense, putting up 48 against them. I have got Cincinnati heading to the Broncos, and I don't know about these guys. I mean, Chase Brown, Jamar Chase, they're fine. They're not blowing scoreboards up, but everybody in our Discord wants to trade them right now, and I don't think that you can. I think you got to hold them ball. T. Higgins there. They're getting nothing out of their tight ends this year. I mean, they got Fant, Sample, Gesicki. Really nothing of interest on the watch list there. I think you just got to keep rolling. If you got Jake Browning and you need him, you got to keep playing him. And I don't think you can move Brown or Chase without losing equity on them.
Yeah, you lose way too much equity on Chase. I seen the one in Discord where Bucky Irving was being offered with some other players, but I wouldn't make that deal. They probably might struggle this Monday, so it might be another week of struggling. Cincinnati's offensive line is so bad. I mean, Browning might get knocked out at any time. The way he's going to take hits. I mean, this was just a bad matchup against Minnesota because the Vikings front just move the Bengals around, and I think the Broncos will probably do the same thing.
Well, I made a poor choice, Lou, in my Dynasty League where I had Jake Browning on the bench. I asked too much, and nobody wanted to pay me for him. And so I said, well, this should be a pretty high-scoring game. Browning should put up maybe 280 yards and a couple touchdowns, and I'll be able to trade him next week for a better pick. That didn't work for me.
No, it didn't. You never know with Browning. He's an interesting guy. He's kind of like a less experienced Jameis Winston at times. There are times where he'll sling it around and put up a big game, but he'll still turn it over 3 times. You didn't get even that version of him last week, and the Broncos clearly aren't a very good matchup. I will say this. I would strongly consider benching Chase Brown and T. Higgins and Browning this week, with Chase being the only guy I would consider starting.
But there are big games coming for them eventually. I mean, it's just bad timing for Burrow to go down and have him come in and playing against Minnesota and
the Vikings and then the Broncos. Yeah.
And I think people saw Minnesota struggle against Atlanta, but Minnesota really struggled against that running game because Atlanta pushed them around. And they had defensive players gone. They got Van Ginkel back last week. Van Ginkel was in Browning's face all game. So, yeah.
On the other side of the ball, we have Minnesota. I didn't like Wentz at all this week, but it turned out they didn't need him. So it's hard to tell whether or not he was going to be a good play. Jordan Mason run wild, and their defense just shut it all down. Trevor, you're our Minnesota guy. I mean, I haven't liked Hawkinson. Addison's been completely gone from the game plan. What do you got for me for Minnesota? Should anybody be interested in Cam Akers? Xavier Scott got a little run because they were so far ahead. Jalen Naylor is a talented third wide receiver.
Well, Addison didn't have any targets because he's suspended, but he'll be back this week.
Yeah, that's why he's disappeared. That's why I said.
But this is a hard game to judge. The defense was so far ahead, and then they just ran the ball and pushed Mason down their throats in the second half. I don't know what I think of Wentz. He looks slow when his footwork looks slow to me. I mean, they were just easy layup passes. What the ones he did make is going to be much different against Pittsburgh this Saturday. So I don't really have. It's going to be Jordan Mason, and if he gets time to throw, I mean, I think Addison might have a good week this week. But as far as anybody to pick up off waivers, there's really nothing there for the Vikings.
Yeah, I mean, Cam Akers was probably already picked up, right, Lou?
Depending on how deep your league is. I mean, in 10-team leagues, not a chance.
Right.
But, yeah, I think so with the Jones injury. Trevor is obviously much more of a Vikings expert than I'll ever be. But one thing I will say is I feel like they're like the 49ers of quarterbacks. Like you get a running back from San Francisco and they kind of just succeed regardless of who they are. I feel like that's what they can do in Minnesota with Wentz. At the very least, he should be able to be a game manager with the offensive weapons that they have. As long as he doesn't lose them the game, he's doing his job.
Fair enough. Sorry.
Yeah, that's all they need him to do.
Camera turned off. I don't know why, guys, but I'm still here.
They need him to do just a game manage for now until they feel comfortable enough getting McCarthy healthy and back in. Because,
can he get the ball to Jefferson? He showed he could. Could he get the ball to T.J. Hawkinson? Yeah, he threw him a touchdown pass. I mean, throughout the week, my biggest thing was please Wentz lift Hawkinson. I have Hawkinson in places. I need him to do something because J.J. McCarthy, you'd think the rookie's going to lean on that veteran tight end. He wasn't. So I think for his first start with the team, Wentz was actually better than expected. Now, of course, there was no pressure because they had such a big lead. So it'll be interesting to see. But I think he's decent. I think if he's out there on waiver wires and you're in a super flex league, you should absolutely pick him up. He's surrounded by tons of talent.
Oh, yeah, I think so, too. It also helped that they played the worst defense in football.
Yeah,
the Bengals are just brutal defensively.
Second worst. The worst is a team that saw Russell Wilson throw for 450 yards against them.
They're close. Their heads up.
They're bad. All right, keeping rolling down the list. I got the Houston Texans, Jacksonville Jaguars. The Texans are now 0-3. They got to go to the Titans. They might set it right there. CJ Stroud. Man, was that first? Normally I go through, but I'm just too curious. Was that first year a fluke, Trevor? Is CJ Stroud who he is last year and this year?
I think this first year was a little bit fluky. I mean, but then he doesn't have any time to throw the football either, and they have no running game right now. So it's just they're putting everything on his shoulders. But outside of Nico Collins, I mean Dalton Schultz is okay. They did get Christian Kirk back, and he looked pretty decent. He didn't look bad. He didn't have a lot of volume, but he was open a few times. They just missed him on a few passes. One guy I do think that I like is Marks, the backup running back. I think he has a chance to outdo Chubb here. They start giving him the ball. He's got more juice than Chubb, so I'm looking to add him in a few leagues this week. Is Mixon ever going to come back this year? I don't know.
Yeah, I was actually looking at before the show, and there is zero news on Mixon, not a word.
Yeah, they're really hush on that, and I've got Mixon in quite a few leagues. So I was getting him in the 8th and 9th round, so I thought I could stash him. Now I might have to cut him because I'm desperate.
Hasn't worked out. Now Marks got drafted higher in all the dynasty leagues that I was in over Chubb, of course, because Chubb's older and been beat up a few times. Lou, what do you think on Marks? Is he going to supplant Chubb, or is Chubb still?
I hope so. I have a few shares of late round Woody Marks. I have 0 Chubb, and kind of piggyback off what Trevor was saying. It could have been a little fluky year one for Stroud, but I mean, Diggs went down last year. Tank Dell went down last year. The offensive line stunk. The offensive line stinks this year. There's 0 running game. And when you become that one-dimensional as an offense, it's easy for defenses to stop you. When you have that much pressure on your shoulders as a quarterback, you're going to make mistakes. When you don't have an offensive line to protect you, you're going to look a hell of a lot worse. My favorite example of this is Patrick Mahomes has lost 2 Super Bowls. Both times were when his offensive line let him down. When Patrick Mahomes has protection, he looks elite because he is elite. If you gave C.J. Stroud an elite offensive line, he might be a top 5 quarterback.
Fair enough. On the deep stash, a lot of people were high on Higgins and Noel in the Dynasty deep stash leagues. Haven't really seen anything from either of them. Xavier Hutchinson looks like the guy who's number 3 there, but I'm really not interested in him either. I think Christian Kirk is healthy now. He's going to be more healthy next week. He's going to get more practice time with this team. I think Christian Kirk elevates this offense. On the other side,
I'm looking at Kirk in a flex spot this week in a league. I only have him in one league. I'm probably going to use him in the flex. So
fair enough.
And they're playing Tennessee. They're playing Tennessee, exactly. So it's a good week to use them.
So we got Jacksonville 2-1 going up against the Niners in wherever the town it is the Niners playing. It certainly isn't San Francisco. We got Trevor Lawrence. Doc liked him a lot in the preseason. I didn't see it. I'm still not seeing it. Travis Etienne, Brian Thomas Jr., obviously a huge disappointment. I hated Travis Hunter from the beginning. I said it on the Sunday show. I was confused why he was getting 3rd round drafted. I think he clearly, at this point in his career, is a quarterback and not a wide receiver. And I said that before he got his only 2 targets he got this week. I'm really uninterested in this team in almost every way, shape, and form.
I like Etienne and Tuden. I like both of them. I like Brenton Strange.
Mm-hmm.
I, too, was on Lawrence coming into the year. I thought that Liam Cohen was going to elevate him, and maybe he still will. It's early. Very concerned about Brian Thomas Jr. Very. Hunter, I was like you. I have 0 shares, wanted no interest. I think he is an above-average wide receiver and an above-average cornerback, which is very special because he can do both. But I don't think he's going to excel at either one. Could he down the line? Yes. This season, no.
Yeah, I agree with all that. Thomas Jr. is just killing me in my seasonal leagues. I have way too many shares. He's dropping the ball.
There is an interesting waiver possible pickup if you're in desperate need from injuries or bye weeks. Parker Washington has played pretty decent on the year and going pretty much unlooked. I kind of looked around all my leagues, and I don't think he was owned in any of them that weren't deeper dives.
Even Diami is available in a number of leagues too.
Yeah, Diami Brown got hurt a little bit, but we'll see if he comes back. Right?
Yeah.
All right, next game, we got Green Bay Packers versus the Cleveland Browns. The Browns took them out in overtime with a field goal. Saw an interesting note today that there hasn't been a single football second that Green Bay has been behind this year, and they still managed to lose this game. That's kind of a funny stat. Obviously, you got Jordan Love, you got Josh Jacobs. I think Matthew Golden's really coming on. Doc likes him a lot. I wasn't super high on him. I'm coming back around on him. Tucker Kraft has been pretty much excellent. I think they did a good job of taking him out of the game. Cleveland's defense is pretty good.
He was banged up too.
Yeah, he got banged up. And then on the watch list for these guys, I mean, I've liked them for a few years, but Emmanuel Wilson got a little gameplay. Josh Jacobs could an injury could happen to him. Emmanuel Wilson, I think, is the guy there. Lou, who do you like here?
Obviously, I like Kraft. I do think Golden has a ton of skill. I think that Jordan Love, unfortunately, made a very poor decision at the end of that game, and it's why they lost. But overall, I mean, there's a lot of talent in Green Bay, and it's hard to really know who is going to be the guy each week. The only thing I'm certain about is Jordan Love and Jacobs. Not that I wouldn't start or roster a number of the other players. I do, but I think week to week it's going to be matchup dependent.
I think too, if you need a receiving option and one of those Packers receivers is on waivers, Dobbs or Wicks, I don't think Golden's going to be on many waivers at all. But Dobbs, you can find them a little bit. They are playing Dallas this week, so I expect Love to throw for 300 plus. So somebody out of that group is going to do something. They're just trying to.
Who's their fourth wide receiver behind those? Behind
Milton?
No, behind Wicks.
Yeah, Milton.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I would be interested in him then because he's playing the Cowboys. Yeah.
That's funny. All right. The Browns are now 1-2. They are going to Detroit to play their next game. Flacco has been unimpressive. Jerry Jeudy, I really thought was my guy this year. I was getting him in 7th, 8th rounds as a guy who's supposed to be a number one on a team. Really hasn't shown anything. You got a sad situation for fantasy when you got Njoku and Fannin both getting 6 targets a game. It'd be really great if only one of them was there. Cedric Tillman flashed a little bit at the beginning of the season's already kind of died off. And that running game, and we all like Judkins, but they're still giving some runs to Ford. They're giving some passes to Sampson. This team is just kind of a fantasy stay away, sadly, from some of the talent that's on this team, Lou.
Yeah, it's a wasteland.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would just say that
I can say.
Cleveland's going to be running into some easier competition after this week. I do like Judkins a lot. I think he has a lot of juice. He catches passes. He's going to get 20 touches a game. He's a guy that you might be able to target after this week, especially if they don't perform well in Detroit, which I don't expect them to. Mm-hmm. So, like I mentioned, I would, try to target Judkins in some trades.
Yeah, absolutely. I ate a lot of crow for that Detroit game. I talked a lot of smack. I live here in Michigan. And I thought Baltimore was going to come put a roll on them, and they were going to start their year 1 and 2. That did not work out for me.
I think, Danger, I think you and many people are probably surprised, including myself, at how much pressure they got on Lamar Jackson. I knew they could put up the points. Mm-hmm. That wasn't the concern for me. I just did not think they would. Not only did they sack him, I think it was 7, maybe even an 8th at the end of the game, but they didn't let him run wild either. When he did break the line of scrimmage, somebody was on him. They played the Ravens really well. I mean, it sounds crazy to say, "Oh, Detroit's defense was great because they gave up 30 points." That's good against the Ravens.
Yeah, it was good.
You hold the Ravens to 30 or less, you're doing good.
And we might as well just stick with this game, guys, since we're already talking about it. And we really saw the return of the, what do they call it, the Sonic and Knuckles pair. I still think they're doing Gibbs a disservice that he's so much more talented than Monty. But obviously Monty can break it, and Monty gets open in tight spaces. And it's an interesting backfield, Trevor. I mean, it's shocking how well it works when it works.
Well, Baltimore was missing their big guy up front. So that's why you seen more Monty last night, because they were going to run inside a little bit more. So I don't expect it every week to be that way. They're going to have a hard time running the ball this week against the Browns. The Browns aren't giving rushing yards to anybody. But then I don't know if the Browns have faced an offensive line quite like Detroit. So we'll see how it goes this week. But yeah, last night, Baltimore, I was rooting for Baltimore because obviously the Vikings and Detroit are in the same division, so I wanted Detroit to lose. But they just make big plays when it mattered. And Dan Campbell, he's going to go for it on 4th down, and they made it both times or 3 times or whatever they went. They made them every single time they went for it. So Baltimore just couldn't make that big play on defense. Even on 3rd and 7s and 3rd and 8s, Detroit was able to convert pretty easily. So they're going to be a force to reckon with in the NFC for sure.
Yeah, and Baltimore's defense was supposed to be much improved from a year ago. But, I mean, the Bills, we saw what the Bills did to them, and now we've seen what the Lions did to them. In their 2 losses, I believe they've given up 80 points combined. So that's definitely a problem. They didn't get Zay Flowers involved enough early on. Seeing Mark Andrews come alive was definitely good for those who have him. That should be encouraging for sure. Derrick Henry, oddly enough, week 1, he crushed the Bills. Forget about the fumbles. He really hasn't been Derrick Henry the past 2 weeks. He looks a little off. I don't know what it is exactly. I know he had a long touchdown run, but I think like under 70 yards or so, something in that range. And
Lou, I have a mind to buy.
Pardon me?
I have a mind to buy on Henry. If you can get somebody to give him up to you, I have a mind to trade for him.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Because I think the Ravens need to focus on getting back to ground and pound. I think they've gone so far away from that because Lamar has become such a proficient passer. I mean, they kept saying last night he has like the best quarterback rating in NFL history, which was shocking to me. But now I kind of see it. But he shouldn't throw unless they have to throw. They need to get back to that ground and pound. They brought in Henry to be that ground and pound guy. They need to have some more runs for him. I know they want to keep him healthy, but that's how they're going to get that pass game going, is on the ground. I think they need to go on more long extended drives. The Ravens, they score really quickly. They can move the ball so fast. That's why Detroit won that game. They dominated time of possession, and that's how you do it. Also, want to say with Detroit, Montgomery definitely got more touches last night than we thought. One, as Trevor mentioned, the Ravens were missing an interior lineman. But two, sometimes you just go with the hot hand. And Gibbs wasn't running the ball exceptionally well. He was always good, and you know he's going to be involved out of the backfield in the passing game. But if Monty's got it going, hand the ball to Monty. And I think you're going to continue to see that. There will be games this year where Monty is the play. This week coming up, like Trevor said, no bueno for all my people here in Mexico. No bueno. Go with Gibbs. You have Montgomery, probably keeping him on the bench.
Yeah, it's possible. All right, guys. These teams are pretty well defined. Obviously, Tesla has had a couple of great grabs, but he's just not involved enough to really be active on a roster or even really on a bench unless something happens to Williams or St. Brown. Any other people you like here? Bateman had a little bit of a showing on the other side, but he's pretty much rostered everywhere already. I don't think there's anywhere to go with these two teams outside of the name brands.
Yeah, all right, there's really nobody to pick up there. No.
Yeah. All right, let's keep moving on. We've got the Denver Broncos went in to play the Chargers, another very close game, 20-23. Denver's offense is not looking how I want them to look. I was heavily involved in Bo Nix and Cortland Sutton. Troy Franklin, who was good through the first 2 weeks, was my Mr. Irrelevant this year, the guy I drafted at the end of every single draft. But right now, I mean, it's really Bo Nix. Now with the injury, you got RJ Harvey and you got Cortland Sutton. There's really no one else involved on this team. You got a couple of passes to Franklin, a couple of passes to Mims. Their tight ends are completely missing. What do you think of this Denver team, Lou? Is there any love here?
Yeah, I think they'll get it together. Let's not forget that they did look pretty good against Indianapolis. And, I mean,
they get
the
the
Chargers
Bengals
were
this
the
week.
number one. Yeah, they get the Bengals this week, but the Chargers were the number one scoring defense a year ago. They're a very good defense, and it's a big reason, not just Justin Herbert's arm, and he's obviously been great, but their defense is another reason why they are 3-0. So I think that Nix did take step forward. She still misses guys a little too often. But no, I wouldn't be worried about the Broncos at all. I would like to see Harvey get more involved.
Yeah, Nix looks like he throws low a lot. He throws at people's feet, and I don't know why. I don't care for it. I guess I'd rather him hit the ground than throw an interception.
That's exactly what I was going to say. If you're going to miss, you want him to miss low because at least it's unlikely to get picked. But yeah, he's been a little inaccurate, more than I remember from a year ago. But I just feel like we haven't even come close to seeing the best of this Broncos team on both sides of the ball.
I like it. Trevor, I had the Chargers picked as to win this division this year, and so far I look pretty smart. They're 3-0. They're heading to the Giants. They should win that game, hopefully, right? You got Justin Herbert. You had Dobbins go down there. I'm sorry. You got Mario Hampton about to see whether he can handle the ball there, right?
He looked really good.
He looked
really good in that.
A lot of juice.
I have a lot of Hampton, Trevor, a lot, and I am very
You're in good shape.
That he has.
You got a top 12 running back the rest of the way potentially.
Yeah, he's going to be excellent.
So are you worried about Ladd McConkey, Trevor? He hasn't. I mean, he had a pretty good game, but he's been kind of overshadowed. They're throwing the ball around a lot more than they did. He really keyed in on McConkey last year, but Quentin Johnston's been involved every single week. Keenan Allen has been great the last 2 weeks. I still like Ladd. I think you have to like Ladd, but he's not paying off the draft spot that you wanted him to. But I'm not panicking on any of these guys, to be honest.
Well, I wouldn't panic on him, but I don't think you're going to. Obviously, you're not going to see the year you had from Ladd. A lot of it's going to be matchup dependent. You seen last week when the Chargers really needed to tie the game and to take the lead, they went to Keenan Allen. Earlier in the game, it looked like Keenan was getting blanketed pretty well. He didn't have a really good first half, and in the second half, especially that fourth quarter, Keenan Allen showed up. Back to Denver and Bo Nix. If you rewatch that game, he's missing wide open receivers all the time. He had touchdowns. Franklin open for touchdowns, easy layup touchdowns that really good quarterbacks, or actually just decent quarterbacks, usually make. And I expect Nix to improve on that as the year goes by. He can't keep missing these guys wide open. Denver should have won that game easily if he makes those completions.
For sure. On the watch list for the Chargers, we had a pretty good performance out of Oronde Gadsden out of the tight end slot for them. Any love for this guy? Nobody's talking about him. He's available in like 88% of leagues.
I have a little bit of interest. It's mild, but I do think he's certainly far more talented as a pass catcher than Conklin or Disley or whoever else they have there. I just think there's so many mouths to feed while everyone's healthy that it's hard to trust him as in your lineup. But I would like to roster him. I just don't think I could start him. Now, of course, if something happens to Keenan Allen who gets injured, if something happens to McConkey, et cetera, if Quentin Johnson suddenly gets bricks for hands again, then maybe. But right now, it's hard to see where he gets enough volume to be considered a startable player.
Fair enough. All right, let's head to San Francisco, where I called my boys in Crimson the worst 3-0 team in the league, and it's probably due mostly to injuries. But they squeaked one out, man. They really, really squeaked one out. You got Arizona. They are now 2-1. They come back home against Seattle. Kyler Murray, Trey Benson, obviously, is going to be a hot discussion this week with James Conner out. Marvin Harrison looked decent. Trey McBride finally got in the end zone. And I do have a couple watch list guys here. I think, you can't discount Amari Demercado, who played pretty well in spots last year. And Zay Jones, he's a wily veteran and might see some more time because outside of McBride and Harrison, there ain't nothing going on in that wide receiver room, Trevor.
Yeah, there's not much going on there. Harrison dropped a couple of balls last week too. He dropped a nice big pass there was nobody around him and he dropped it. I'm sure he'd like to have that one back. Arizona's just a tough team to figure out. You think they would be a little bit better offensively, but they just aren't. I think Kyler Murray really limits their passing ability. I want McBride standing there open in the middle, and he's not throwing them the ball sometimes. So it's just throw it to him and see what's going to happen. The Conner injury, that's going to be a bummer. As for not so much for if you own him, it's a bummer, but it gives you a new opportunity with Benson. So I do like Benson, but I just think that Arizona offense is just going to be a yo-yo all year round.
Yep. Going over the other side of the ball, injuries is the name of the game for the Niners. Bosa got hurt. He's out now. It's looking not good there. Mac Jones had an injury at the end of the game. He played through it. He limped through the end of the game. Purdy probably, really should sit out 3 or 4 more weeks because those toe injuries can just be absolutely awful. But on the bright side, Christian McCaffrey's scoring 22 points a game again. So that's pretty nice. Ricky Pearsall is getting open, but they're just smothering him. So it's been difficult for them. And obviously there's not a tight end in that field that can fill in, for the 49ers. Lou, what do you think?
They need Juwan Jennings back in the worst way, at the very least, to give them 2 receiving options that you can actually rely on. Because Pearsall looks great. He really does. And obviously McCaffrey is a stud. As long as he's on the field, he's a stud, running, catching, whatever it is. Obviously, yes, as you mentioned, the injuries. No Purdy and no Kittle is bad enough. And then when you don't have Juwan as well, or Ayuk for that matter, even though we didn't expect to have him,
right.
It's troublesome. But the fact that they're 3-0 is good because even if they lose a game or two to get healthy, they'll be okay.
That'll be all right. Trevor, am I a little naive to think that I expected maybe McCaffrey to be split out a little bit more and having him and Brian Robinson Jr. on the field at the same time would have been a good idea? Or is that just my fandom hoping for a different look?
You would think it would be a good idea. They did it a couple of times against the Saints the week before. To me, Brian Robinson, I think he's just happy to be on a roster.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think he's special, Trevor, but he's a capable veteran back at this point. And, just being able to move McCaffrey around and get a little more creative, which they did against the Saints. And I really thought that I thought McCaffrey would get 12 targets and 7 of them be out of the slot this week. And I just felt like every time you think Shanahan's going to dial something up fun to compete in a different look, he just goes back to very boring football, which is what it really felt like. It was just McCaffrey up the middle, McCaffrey up the middle, McCaffrey up the middle. And it's like, guys, come on. do something else.
There's going to be a week. Now, I don't want to get too much into DFS. We'll say that for tomorrow night. There's going to be a game where he's going to break the slate because he's going to get that 2-3 touchdown game that's going to get him in the 40s. I mean, he's on the verge. He almost scored last week. They shut him down on the 3rd and goal, and they try to pass. And then I think they gave it to the fullback the second time they're down there to punch it in, which really upset me because I had McCaffrey all over in DFS. But yeah, the Niners are just the one nice thing about the Niners without Jennings is, Pearsall's getting the ball, McCaffrey's getting the ball, and that's all you
That's
can.
about it. All right, guys, when we talked about the show, I said let's keep it to 45 an hour max. We're at an hour 5 now, so we only have 3 more games to get through, so maybe a little power hour here. There's a lot to talk about, and it's our first time doing
the show. And remember, there's no bye weeks yet, so you're going through every game. Once the bye weeks start, we'll have some less. We
should add one real quick. Luke McCaffrey might be a pickup this week because Terry McLaurin might not play this week. He's dealing with a quad injury and he's seeking another opinion here. I did see that he popped up on the injury report or not. I seen that he had the Red Cross by him, and then I didn't think much of it, but I just got a text here saying he might be out.
Yeah, that's true. All right, let's go to the Seattle Seahawks. A dominant performance out of Kenneth Walker, a dominant deformance out of their defense. 13-44. The Seahawks go 2-1. The Saints go 0-3. Honestly, it looks like to me Kamara's out of juice. Is it just bad matchup? I mean, Seattle's a really tough defense, but is Kamara done being a top end option?
For me, he's done being a top-end option. He's more of a second-tier option. He's going to look like he's out of juice every week because the Saints are that bad.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're just – I mean, I know they come close in a couple of games, but it's just not looking really good.
I mean, I guess there's going to be some fantasy relevance here, Lou, because if they're going to throw the ball 40, 45 times a game or more like they have been, I mean, Olave got, 14 targets? Juwan Johnson got
Olave, Shaheed, Juwan. I mean, there is some fantasy goodness for this really bad team. They're kind of what I expected the Browns to be. The Browns just aren't doing it. Maybe it's Flacco. It's just too old. I don't know. But they're going to be losing in games, and they're going to be throwing the football. So they're going to rack up those garbage time points. So I don't mind them from a fantasy perspective, but overall they stink.
Yeah. How about this stat for Olave? He had 10 catches last week, and he only had 15.7 fantasy points. He only had 57 yards on 10 catches.
That's true. On the other side of the ball, Sam Darnold has been Sam Darnold, right? Low mistakes and just kind of fine football.
He looks very comfortable, though.
He does look comfortable. Kenneth Walker, I mean, dominant was a strong word. He scored the 2 touchdowns you expected him to score, only on 38 yards. That was a little sad. And JSN just continues to look really good. We talked in the Sunday morning Discord, Trevor, that Halani could be a guy that you might want to pick up because they were dominating. He did get 10 carries. He didn't look impressive at all with 27 yards on those 10 carries. But I don't know. I don't really have a whole lot of love for this team out of JSN and Walker Charbonnet when he's healthy. Cup has been a non-factor. I don't know.
I wonder if
they're playing defense and they're running the ball when they're supposed to, and that's good real life football. It's not great for fantasy.
They use Horton a little more in the passing game, and he might be a guy you might want to have if you have a deep bench. They didn't need to pass in the second half, but he had a really good first half, and he returns punts or kicks. So, and he didn't have
Horton's a guy that if he's out there, you should absolutely look to him. He might not be out there, but if he is, great call there by Trevor for sure.
Yeah. All right, 2 games to go, guys. We got the Cowboys getting destroyed by the Bears. I have to admit, Lou, in all 3 of my pick'em leagues, I picked Chicago to win this game, and that was before we found out that Lamb's going to miss several games. The Cowboys only managed to put up 14 points. They're 1-2. Now they are out Lamb. You are our Cowboys guy. What's there to love about this team?
Honestly, Javonte Williams looks actually quite good. Yeah, the offensive line, it actually looks pretty good. I mean, there's a bunch of first-round picks on it. It should be. And Dak honestly has looked good based on the situations he's been put in. I don't mind Pickens either. There's still fantasy goodness on the offensive side. But the main thing is if you have players going against them, start those players because this defense, I mean, we already knew that Eberflus sucked. He's not a good coach. Schottenheimer also probably shouldn't have gotten his job either, but no one wants to work for Jerry Jones. So they had Slim Pickens for their head coaching situation, but the defense is terrible. And they're the NFC Bengals, basically, but not as injured because they have Dak and Burrow's out. But no defense, going to have to throw the ball a lot, usually going to put up a lot of points if Lamb is healthy. So if you have Cowboys players offensively, that's cool. And if you have the Bears, you got to be encouraged by what you saw from Caleb, right? Odunze is obviously the number one, no question there. And although it was the Cowboys, Swift had some explosive looking plays as well. And if they can get him rolling, that would be very good.
I think the Bears are going to be one of those teams that wins 4 or 5 games, but their key players are putting up 20, 25 fantasy points a game. And that's okay. You kind of want those teams playing from behind like that. Trevor, we got some openings for fantasy rosters that people are looking at. Turpin, they're looking at Tolbert. Any interest in either of those guys?
No. I mean, I think he could have a little interest in them. There might be a little interest in those guys, but I don't have a whole lot of interest in them. If I have to roster those guys, my team is pretty bad. But that happens this time of year. I do probably have a team that's going to need a guy like Turpin.
Right. Now, Turpin's a guy that I'm kind of interested in because Turpin returns kicks, and he has that opportunity to return a kick.
He hasn't been returning kicks as much because they've been using him in the offense. He does, but if you're going to pick between the two, 100% it's Turpin because he is much more explosive than Tolbert. They will use him out of the backfield at times.
Yes.
And
they design those quick wide receiver screens for him.
And one touch could be a touchdown for him. With Tolbert, I mean, to me, he's just a significantly worse version of Pickens.
Yeah, and Trevor, all Sunday show, Doc begged people to fade Lamb and play Ferguson. That was visionary.
That was visionary. Is Luther Burden from the Bears, is he on waiver wires? Because he's a guy, I know it was against the Cowboys, but it's only his 3rd game. They did implement him a little bit more. This is a confidence building game for the Bears. Maybe he gets more active. He's a guy I might look at on waivers too if you need somebody.
Yeah, Zacchaeus.
He's uber talented.
Yeah, Zacchaeus looked bad, and I think Burden could take those snaps.
He is bad. He's just a placeholder on any team he goes to. Burden is super talented, and not that he's the same player as Odunze, but it's a very similar situation to last year where Odunze came in. They already had Moore and Keenan. Now Burden comes in. They already have Odunze and more. But if he gets looks, if he gets touches, he's going to make plays.
All right, guys, we got to get out of here. It's the last game. We have the Chiefs playing the Giants. The Chiefs moved to 1-2. Honestly, I thought the Giants would come in and win this game at home, and the Chiefs would start 0-3. I was willing it to existence because of my hatred for the Chiefs. It did not happen. But the good thing is, guys, it was announced today that they believe they're going with Jackson Dart in New York.
It's about damn time.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see how good it is. I think there's more than just the quarterback problem there. There's an offensive line problem. I think there's a philosophy problem too. Obviously, I'm not a coach. They know more than I do. But when you see your receivers getting blanketed, you have to change up the routes a little bit because they run neighbors so deep on every route. Why not try a 2-yard pass and see if he can run for a little bit? Try to implement more ways, but maybe they're that. I really liked the call when it was 2nd and goal from the 15, and they did a Russell Wilson quarterback draw. That
was awesome. Yeah,
that was just great. So I don't know how Dable keeps his job there all the time. We just mentioned it. Daniel Jones played for them, and he leaves, and he looks good elsewhere. So I think there's a coaching problem there as well. And then for the Chiefs, you got to look at Thornton. If Thornton's on waiver wires, you got to get him. Even with Worthy coming back and Rice coming back, I still think Thornton has a spot.
Mm-hmm. And on the other side, I think I know that he has been discarded by many people. But you still have a guy in Devin Singletary that you could pick up in deep leagues because Scadaboo's got to prove himself, and there's no Tracy there. We'll see what happens.
I would just hand the ball to Scadaboo 30 times a game.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, I mean, look, the guy was good. He had 60 yards on 6 carries. He had 6 catches for 60 yards. I mean, come on.
I mean, he just brings an energy.
Yeah.
And the one thing I will say about Dart is, yes, I complete agreement with Trevor that it's not just the quarterback play, the offensive line play, the coaching, it's a mess. And Daniel Jones is the perfect example. Mm-hmm. But Russell Wilson was not good in Denver, was not good in Pittsburgh. Russell Wilson isn't good anymore. Yes, I like the moon balls. Yes, he looked good against the Cowboys. As we've talked about, everyone does. Dart is still the better option. They took him in the first round. You need to see what you have. Give him the shot. Let him make mistakes. You got nothing to lose.
You might as well go 1-16 I'd rather you go 1-16 with Dart than go 1-16 with Wilson or whatever. However many games they're going to win, they're not going to win a lot of games. Probably not, no matter who the quarterback is. But at least, and Dart has some mobility too. So,
all right, guys, we gotta get out of here. Let me do one last thing here. Let's talk about the waiver wire. Obviously, it's very league and setting dependent, but right now, Trey Tucker is the number one added player at 10% rostered in sleeper leagues. Do you burn a number one on Trey Tucker? And if you're playing in a fab, what do you put on him?
I'm burning it if I have too many injuries. It's all about need, like you said. In terms of fab, I don't know, maybe 10, 15% of what I got.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was going to say 10% if you're doing a fab league. And yeah, if you need a receiver, I mean, he's going to be on the field.
Mm-hmm. Number 2 pickup, according to Sleeper, is the Detroit Lions defense. I have a personal philosophy. I never put waivers on defense, but defense has been scoring a lot this year in fantasy, and I did burn it on Seattle last week, and that really paid off for me. So can you burn a top priority on the Detroit Lions this week?
I'm not going to burn a priority on any defense realistically, but I love the matchup, and if they're available after waivers, I'll pick them up in a heartbeat.
Trevor already mentioned him. Number 3 is Tyquan Thornton in only 8% of leagues. I think he's definitely worth a stash until Rice comes back. And then, people that make sense, right? Sterling Shepard makes a lot of sense to take a swing at him. Turpin makes a lot of sense to take a swing on him. Ollie Gordon only in 30% of leagues rostered according to Sleeper. I think that's just a shame. Go out and get him. Any other gems here, Lou, before we sign off?
No, you hit the main ones on the head. I mean, there might be some later in the week that we can discuss in Discord based on the injury reports that come out. But at this point, for what we know going into the waivers tonight and fab tonight, I think you got it, buddy.
Woody Marks.
Woody Marks. Yeah, Woody Marks is owned in quite a lot of leagues. Parker Washington is one I see only owned in 1% of leagues if you're desperate. A lot of times, though, those kind of guys can get through waivers and you can just pick them up for free the next day. So that's how I handle kickers and defense myself as well. So, all right, my friends, thank you so much. Trevor, this was a great idea. Thanks for inviting me today. I don't know if I can do it every Tuesday, but it worked out today. So I really appreciate it. And make sure y'all are going over to drroto.com and checking out all of our articles. We have all kinds of podcasts. The Discord is the best in the business. If you want Dr. Roto to answer your individual questions, you become a member, you get into our Discord, and Lou and I, and sometimes Trevor with Doc, go through every single start sit for an hour and a half right before game time. Love it. For Lou and Trevor, I'm Johnny Danger. We appreciate you, and we'll see you on the other side.
Thanks for stopping by the office. Get your fantasy prescription by subscribing to the channel and checking out drroto.com. And until the next visit, be well and take care.